today, but we're being extra cautious and we are still on StreamYard.
It's Andy. I'm on StreamYard because I might have to cough, and we have a cough button here, and we don't have a cough button in the studio. Do we, Rich? Anyway, maybe we should get one. But
we have one in the control room, but that requires action by the control room.
Maybe we could wire. I look. I'm strong. I'm relatively alert, and we're going to have a good show. And
no comment.
It's good to be back with Anne. And in a couple of weeks, Chris Cooper's going to be back on July 23rd.
And we have to really escalate the noise we make so that we'll be heard.
Welcome to Gay USA. I'm Andy Hum, coming to you once again via StreamYard.
And I'm Ann Northrup.
How are you, Ann?
I'm great. I have my next to last radiation session this afternoon after the show, and then my last one tomorrow. I'm very happy about all of it. My radiation doctor is not so pleased that I have developed the traditional radiation burn on my chest where I'm being zapped, but I am confident that will disappear within a month or two with proper attention, which is what I expect to give it. But I'm feeling great, and I want to say, what do I want to say? I always want to say that I am really gratified whenever anyone tells me that they've been listening and they have decided to get various tests. I just think that's so smart of them to do, smarter than me. And the other thing is that we divide up the work on this show in various ways. Andy writes the show note every week that you get in your inbox. And I respond to viewers who are kind enough to support the show with donations. I'm behind on that. That is something that has lapsed a little in these past months. But I'm receiving your notes, some personally supportive of me, some supportive of the show, some donations. And I just want you to know it has not fallen into a hole. It's all there. Maybe I'll catch up, maybe I won't, but we're always, always grateful for all your support in all ways. Thank you.
Indeed, we are. And again, we expect to be back in the studio next week.
But all then right. we would be this week too.
Okay, so in the headlines, that big, ugly Republican bill that was signed by President Trump, what does it do? It devastates healthcare and the environment, but more to the point, it creates a massive ICE force and detention centers that really threaten immigrants and citizens alike.
Very scary, as the last 6 months have been. The U.S. Supreme Court is scaring us by taking up yet another case we're scared of, and that is an effort to ban trans athletes from school sports. They will give us their dictum, and then we'll be at their mercy.
Before I forget, the only sport where they can't exclude trans athletes is equestrian, because men and women compete equally in the equestrian sports. In the Olympics, at least. All right, having stripped a Navy ship of Harvey Milk's name, the word is that Secretary Hegseth will not take away the names of other civil rights leaders from vessels. So it was only about going after Harvey Milk.
Surprise! The Health and Human Services Department is on the warpath against gender-affirming care in U.S. hospitals.
Idaho's Attorney General is barring schools from welcoming all.
I think this is the most hateful story of the week. We'll get to that. But Wisconsin has knocked out conversion therapy, while Virginia, of course, has okayed it.
We're mourning this week the losses of a leading gay playwright, the matriarch of Los Angeles's Black LGBTQ community, and a pioneer in LGBTQ sports.
And maybe the most depressing story of the week, Israel, in bombing an Iranian prison, has reportedly killed 100 trans inmates.
Wow. The Pride March in Budapest that we told you about last week turns out to have been the biggest anti-government demonstration in Hungary since the fall of communism, and Orban, the dictator, is sweating.
Well, he's got an election coming up next year, and he could be in trouble, we hope. The German chancellor nixed pride flags in parliament, but that was not the end of the story.
And while we're still barred from the altar, Pope Leo will continue to allow the blessing of couples in non-traditional relationships.
Yeah, that's the altar of the Catholic Church. Let's be clear. Don't scare them more than we have to.
Okay.
All right.
So there it was, the braying Republicans. We got a picture of them as Trump signs that bill, slashing Medicaid, cutting Medicare and SNAP, food stamps, while giving trillions to tax breaks to billionaires. And they all look so jolly as they all voted for a bill or supported a bill that only 29% of the country supported. It only got 67% from Republicans in terms of support. It's extremely unpopular, but this is what Trump wanted, and the billionaires who bought him and the Congress wanted, and they got it.
And they got a lot of things. And one thing that was really upsetting was this week seeing Mike Johnson being so smarmy in the halls of Congress, being asked about it and saying, oh, this is going to save the country, and I think we're going to pick up seats because of this. And my fear is they are, because they're so good at lying and spinning and manipulating, and they've set this up so that the bad stuff happens after the midterms and the better stuff happens before, and this is how they're operating. And they'll find another way afterwards to mitigate that.
Well, the question is, all right, look, everybody can see what's happening in Los Angeles with immigration enforcement, on horseback, lots of masked people, no uniforms, no identification. This is what it has come to. And what does the bill do? It puts in $170 billion more into enforcement. And so they're going to be able to hire every Proud Boy in the country and to take these jobs. They're totally unaccountable. And they're setting up all these camps and all these concentration camps, literally concentration camps. You saw it, the thing in Florida that I've seen, Alligator, Alcatraz. And they are going to turn all the people that they arrest, and it could be anybody. I mean, I saw a woman from Guatemala. She was a tourist in New York. She was grabbed off the street. She's screaming, and they just pack her into a car. This is fascism. And the question is, as this intensifies, are people just going to get more scared, or are they going to say, this has got to stop?
Well, who has the guns, and it isn't us. And it is scary. And as someone said this week, this is Trump's private army, as you say, unaccountable. They're not going through regular channels. They're not adhering to any standards or norms. They are just setting up their own private army with billions and billions and billions of dollars to, I had this mental picture. I don't know if it's true, of course, when they sent the guys on horseback into the park in LA where there was no one, and they were unidentified. They were there for no discernible reason. And I could just imagine them all sitting around saying, hey, this will be hilarious. Let's just send a troop of people armed on horseback into the park and scare the Jesus out of them.
Well, and as you've read, they're going after our Democratic mayoral candidate, Zoran Mamdani, Trump is saying, he's a naturalized citizen and we can get rid of him because we don't like what he stands for. And you know what? If he wins, I think I'll take over New York City and DC. I'll run it better. This is
Well, the old Gay Liberation Front veterans who formed after Stonewall put out a statement this week saying, come on, we got to stand up now against the fascists. We're getting these warnings from all sides. It was nice to hear it from them, but we got to do more.
Yes. I mean, Timothy Snyder, the author of On Tyranny, warned, that these sites are going to be sites for slave labor, basically, because, in other words, Trump can give corporations the people that he's arrested and put in these camps and say, you pick the crops. You see, we don't need, to protect the current people who are doing it. We'll get you the labor that way.
Well, they pick them up in the fields where they're currently working as relatively free people, arrest them, abuse them, and then send them out for as slaves.
Exactly. This is without exaggeration, folks. I don't know when people are going to wake up. And, within hours of Trump signing the bill into law, there's all these little things in the law. I mean, the Times had a 2-page spread of all the crap that's in it. The gun owners of America and other pro-gun organizations filed a lawsuit saying, we can use machine guns now because of the way they fixed the tax code and because they banned machine guns under tax law. And now it's out of the law now. And now machine guns are going to be legal. Well, they basically are anyway.
In a slightly less lethal item, we've talked often here about how they want to destroy public education. The bill includes a 100% tax deduction for any funds donated to private school creation.
So it's not like we're not protesting this. And Ann mentioned the Gay Liberation Front veterans. But there was a protest at Trump Tower on the 4th of July as Trump was signing the bill in Washington, organized by Rise and Resist, Indivisible, and Physicians for a National Health Program. About 75 people called it the murder budget. Trump will sign his budget bill to strip millions of health care, kill clean energy, and cut funding for SNAP, all to fund ICE's lawless reign of terror and tax cuts for the billionaire class. We need to repeat these things. This is what it's all about. It's not popular, but now the next time we all get out on the street is going to be July 17 from coast to coast. It's going to be in the evening. Go to, Google, we'll put a link in the email, and you should sign up for our email at gayusatv.org. But just Google your town, 50501. That's the organization that puts this together. And there are actions everywhere. In New York, we're going to be down on Foley Square. It's not a march for us. It's going to be a big rally down there to protest all this. And we need to keep increasing our numbers.
It's called Good Trouble Lives On, in the spirit of John Lewis. And there are, we're trying to fight back in various ways. California this week refused to comply with the Trump order to bar trans girls from school sports. The Department of Education, of course, has threatened to cancel all federal funding to the state of California because of this, because they have no shame and nothing.
The Supreme Court just let Trump fire everybody he wants to fire.
Well, what they said is there was an injunction against it. He had put out that order that people should be fired in large droves. That was challenged. There was an injunction issued against it while it was adjudicated. And on an emergency appeal to the Supreme Court from the White House, the Supreme Court said, well, we're not going to decide the basic facts of the case yet, but while we're thinking about that, you can go ahead and fire as many people as you want.
They let him do whatever he wants.
Well, the IRS this week says churches can endorse political candidates.
Yes, this is it. This is their unilateral ruling. And they said, when you do that in a church, it's really just family talking to each other. I mean, they've got tax. I mean, does this mean that nonprofit groups can now start making political endorsements?
As long as you're a right-wing nonprofit. But the fact is, I mean, come on, certainly liberal progressive churches have featured political candidates for many, 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 many years.
Well, they sponsor them to speak, but actually, churches have been circumspect somewhat. They don't actually say, here's the list of people you're going to vote for. The
right-wing ones do, but no, maybe no. But the progressive ones trot them out to speak. They're not inviting the left-wing churches invite people to speak. They do whatever.
The wonderful separation between church and state that we enjoyed for 250 years is
never mind.
Now, if you were hoping that Elon Musk's America Party might fracture Republicans, it might. But the real break in the MAGA is the refusal of Attorney General Pam Bondi and FBI Director Kash Patel to release the list of Jeffrey Epstein's clients. That may prove unforgivable to many MAGA folk.
Well,
they care about this.
There are people who are upset about it, but it's hard for me to believe this is going to rise to the level of a major issue.
You sound like Trump at the cabinet meeting. Are we talking about this? Epstein, you're still asking me about this?
I'm just looking at the track record and who cares about what. And the answer is not much.
Okay.
But the Supreme Court will hear cases on trans girls in school sports from Idaho and West Virginia. So we are now automatically not optimistic about that.
27 states have enacted bans on trans girls and girls sports. Is it always just girls, or what do they do about boys?
I think they just ignore boys. I mean, some boys, some schools, some settings are upset about trans boys participating in, boys sports, but it doesn't rise to the level of the upsetness about trans girls. Lambda Legal also reports that their help desk is getting twice as many requests for help this year as last year, literally twice as many.
Raised $200 million, so I hope they're staffing these lines. It makes me wonder how we read about they've defunded the special gay suicide hotline, right?
Yeah.
Are we doing that private? Trevor Project will go on and answer calls, right? But the question is, are we going to privatize these things and still provide the service to people?
Well, Lambda Legal's doubling of requests for help is 80% from trans and non-binary people who are concerned about very largely about their identity documents, about service in the military, about access to public accommodations and healthcare, about discrimination in services, and violence and harassment and immigration. Those are the issues they're calling about.
All right, back to Pete Hegseth, the Secretary of Defense. So
he didn't tell the president he wasn't sending weapons to Ukraine.
Can anything get this guy fired?
Not yet.
So anyway, we told you that he renamed the ship that had been named for Ensign Harvey Milk, for someone else. But now Department of Defense officials say they have no plans to rename any of the other ships named after civil rights leaders, and that included suffragist Lucy Stone, Sojourner Truth, John Lewis, Dolores Huerta, Cesar Chavez, and Medgar Evers. So are they backing off? Or are they just going to keep doling out the nonsense?
Well, they're not perverts, like Harvey. They're maybe they only want to offend one group at a time, us. that certainly
Well,
we were their main target.
we are their main targets, which is why in the 2024 election, as you know, you also saw these stories about almost every demographic in the country went a little bit more towards Trump last time. We went the other direction because we knew we were targeted, and we know when we're being insulted.
Yeah.
All right. A federal judge in Rhode Island has blocked HHS, Department of Health and Human Services, from implementing mass layoffs and overhauling some of its sub-agencies, finding there's no rational basis for it. The judge, Melissa Dubose, said that the HHS failed to produce a shred of evidence that services to the states and access to critical information would continue uninterrupted, and the harms are great. So, you know, we've got a lot of lower court judges on our side, but they keep getting overruled by the Supreme Court.
Exactly. The Trump administration has no fear of lower court judges, especially since they have now gotten the Supreme Court to say that rarely does a national injunction apply from a local judge.
They've got John Roberts, the Chief Justice, on speed dial. Just
and
call him up.
Alito and Thomas and Kavanaugh and Gorsuch and occasionally Amy Coney Barrett.
Mhm.
All right. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, then HHS, Department of Health and Human Services, has opened up a new and novel front in its crusade against trans people. They're going to investigate hospitals over the provision of gender-affirming care and a claim that health workers may refuse to administer this care based on their religious beliefs. So this is the big thing, saying having to help do health care for trans people is somehow a violation of your religious beliefs. You know, as we were just coming in here, I was reading about a store in Utah. I'm trying to remember what it was, where the employee objected to having to use the proper pronouns for a trans coworker. Oh, it's dishonest. It offends my religious beliefs. She got fired, because she was being so disruptive in the workplace, and she's bringing a lawsuit through one of these religious groups.
Well, the Trump people have laid out this approach. They have defined trans people as liars by definition, and that to assert a trans identity is to be against the Bible. It's all right there for them.
I mean, healthcare workers already have the right not to participate in abortion in any way, shape, or form if it offends them. But this is providing basic health care to trans people. It's just awful.
Yeah, we used to believe that everybody deserved health care.
Everybody.
Yeah. All right. Should we move on to the states?
We could. Just a footnote, another nasty thing that was, I guess, in the bill. Oh, no. It was a ruling by the Federal Communications Commission. You can they no longer have to provide cheap phone calls in prison.
Yeah, that was terrible. There's been this whole movement for years to expose how these private prison companies are making these egregious amounts of money by charging egregious amounts for prisoners to make phone calls. We were making great headway. We were all set to knock that down, and then boom, it disappears because the private prison companies are donors to the Republicans, and so they're allowed to keep their profits.
Not just that, but Tom Homan, the border czar, and Pam Bondi were on the payroll of the company that does it. They had just come off working for them.
Undoubtedly.
Let's go to the states.
Okay. Well, let's start with libraries and schools. In Georgia, we mentioned this last week, but in fact, it was a little different than what we said, and it's advanced. Pierce County, Georgia. We told you about librarian Livonia Moore, who we said had been fined, but she has actually been fired. She's in the middle there. They did a summer program where kids were encouraged to bring in books for display. And someone brought in the book, When Aiden Became a Brother, which is sort of double entendre because it's about his mother having another child, but it's also about him being trans in a sort of matter-of-fact kind of way. And of course, some parent freaked out about this. And
Ms. Moore said, all I saw was Aiden becoming a big brother. I saw a family with a kid wearing a rainbow sweater and the mom pregnant. It was a mixed family. It was like, okay, put it on the table. And then she gets fired over this because of a right-wing campaign. I mean,
yes.
A right-wing campaign.
No longer could you be even warned or suspended or fined. You're just fired immediately.
And, look, this is a woman. She's really a hero. She worked up from being just sort of a clerk there, and now she's the head librarian, for God's sakes. And
not anymore.
Well, she's suing to get her job back. We'll see how that happens. But she said, look, I'm not trying to promote any ideology, but she is going to keep books. Well, she wanted to keep books relevant to all kinds of people in the community, including LGBTQ people, immigrants from different countries, and people who speak various languages. The library is for everybody, she said. You should be able to go into any library and feel welcome, or at least find something that you will enjoy reading, doing, resources. I know this day and time is tough. Believe me, it is real tough, but the library should be the one place that should not be a hurdle. Thank you.
Well, evidently that is an ideology to the people who hate that. And similarly, beyond the library to the schools, I think one of the worst stories of the week comes from Idaho, where the state attorney general has barred the use of "everyone is welcome here" signs in schools. There is a new law that bars employee flags and banners with opinions, and he used this as a way to disallow "everyone is welcome here" on a sign or banner in Idaho schools.
These signs are part of an ideological social movement which started in Twin Cities, Minnesota, following the election of Donald Trump. Since that time, the signs have been used by the Democratic Party as a political statement. Goes on and on and on like that. And even children's artwork could be prohibited under the law if it meets the statutory definition criteria of a banner. Wow. So, this all came to public attention because the teacher who put the, "everyone is welcome here" sign up, what was her name? Sarah Inama, a 6th grade history teacher. She was told you can't have this stuff up in the classroom. And she said, look, this is the basis of public education, that everybody is welcome here. Come on.
Come on. No. You can't believe this is true. In the, we all grew up in this, not we all. Those of us who grew up in the United States over the last 3,000 years thought we knew some things about standards. And one of them was everyone is welcome for public education. Well, evidently, we were deluded, because that is not what these people think. And they think it is some kind of communist conspiracy.
Well, I think of what I grew up with in the classroom in Catholic school. It was pictures of Jesus being tortured to death. I mean, come on. No, it's not funny. I mean, you were confronted with that every day, a man being tortured to death. Come on. How sick is that? Very. And
all of this is.
Offended. I'm not sorry, because, it's wrong. It's, when I was in college, I went to a church where they said, we're not going to emphasize the crucifixion. We're going to emphasize the resurrection, because he hung on a cross for 3 hours. That was it. What this religion is supposed to be about is resurrection. But anyway, I don't want to give a sermon here.
Please don't.
But another thing that was in the big ugly bill is, did you talk about this? 100% deduction for donations to third party. You said this, yeah.
To private school
Private
vouchers.
school vouchers, yeah.
Yes.
Unbelievable.
And in a court decision in Florida, the Court of Appeals has ordered a trans teacher, trans woman, addressed with male pronouns on the grounds that government employees, at least they acknowledge public schools are, government entities, must follow state law. And Florida instituted a law 4 years ago that says, the teacher 4 years ago changed her pronouns. She's been living with female pronouns, female identity for 4 years, but now she's been ordered by a court of appeals to use only male pronouns.
Wow. There was a dissent from an Obama judge who said Florida has recently come to believe that the First Amendment does not prevent it from dictating what can and cannot be said. All right. Better news from North Carolina, where the Democratic governor, Josh Stein, vetoed 3 anti-DEI bills and another measure that in part would target transgender rights, sort of shutting down the Republicans. And by the way, it goes back, if they want to try to override them, if everybody votes the way they did the first time, the veto overrides would fail.
It's very narrow, but possible. And the Wisconsin Supreme Court has upheld a ban on conversion therapy. And this, we talked for months about the election of a judge to the Wisconsin Supreme Court and how important it was. And this is it. This is just one of these cases because she, a progressive, was elected, and that tipped the balance of the court, and thus we get a good decision.
Yeah, the legislature tried to use some stratagem to override what the governor had done. And the court said, no, you can't do it that way. And it was really a sneaky way of withholding funds and
right wing, sneaky?
Yeah, it was nasty. But look, they use every lever in the book that they have, and we have to do the same.
Yes, which we have always played by some set of rules that we thought everyone agreed to, but evidently not.
And by the way,
yeah, go ahead.
Well, Billie Jean King this week, she's saying, and she gave an interview, and she said, she's over there at Wimbledon. It's crucial to listen to transgender athletes instead of trying to tell them how to feel and what they should do. I don't think people have any idea how hard it is for trans people. Just listen to their stories. Listen, not tell them everyone's unique. Make them feel included because you really don't know. With every person I meet, I try to start with a blank. Ask questions. So that's she's trying to, get us out of this terrible, terrible thing.
Journalists famously, when writing about trans issues and trans people, do not speak to trans people frequently. They just go off on their high horse as if they know everything and don't speak to the people involved.
When I was a kid, William F. Buckley Jr. did a show on gays and had no gays on it. He had Dick Ashworth, who's a good guy, parents of gays. I was actually allowed to be in the audience. I mean, I didn't even know what was going on, and I was asked to come in. And we complained so bitterly about that to PBS Channel 13. We got a 3-hour special out of it on a Sunday afternoon called Lesbians and Gay Men, We're Here, and We Care. Would love that. It was great. It was great. There were scores of gay people on it. We were answering the phones from people. It was live, on a Sunday afternoon, and it was de-isolating people. There was that op-ed in the Times this week about a guy who was on the suicide hotline, with these trans people.
Yes.
He talked about, they just need an adult voice that they can talk to these kids and, give them some sort of affirmation and guidance.
It's true. And he was great, and it was a great piece. But again, it didn't talk to any of the gay kids who were calling in. It just talked to him because he was, the
Well, he was
great
talking about
expert.
he was talking about his experience.
I understand. I'm, as I say, I thought it was great, but it wasn't enough. And meanwhile, just to counterbalance, in Virginia, the right-wing counselors who sued the state to be able to practice conversion therapy because the state had banned it, reached a settlement with the state that they are allowed to do it. Conversion therapy, they're talking therapy. They can't hit people with cattle prods, but they can talk to them. They claim that their freedom of speech and religion was being violated. But in these cases, what you're talking about are consumer issues, whether something is valid for consumers, just as you would outlaw a car that didn't work from a dealership, so you can outlaw conversion therapy that is a hoax. But these conversion therapists are arguing that they have the right to do whatever they want.
They accused the left of encouraging minors to mutilate themselves.
Well, they're the ones who are mutilating minors. Truth Wins Out is a very good source of exposés of conversion therapy. If you want to dig a little deeper, go to their website, Truth Wins Out, Wayne Besson's operation. He has been focused on this for years and is a great source of information about conversion therapy.
But as you said, this only allows quack talk therapy. Does not authorize aversion or shock therapy.
No, but this is bad enough. And who knows what they're actually doing in the privacy of these offices.
Well, sometimes we find out and it turns out to be actionable.
Yes, exactly. And you'll find out more about that on Truth Wins.
And then there's the story, Baylor University in Waco, Texas.
Yeah, this is wild.
They got a $643,000 grant from a liberal foundation to foster inclusion among LGBTQ identified individuals in the church.
The Baptist church, no less.
Now, they want to foster inclusion and belonging in the church. Emphasis on understanding the disenfranchisement and exclusion of LGBTQIA individuals and women within congregations. So this BAUGH Foundation, BAUGH, they gave the money. Now, of course, there has been a backlash. One of these right-wing reverends said, it's much better to send your child to a secular university hostile to the faith than to a Christian university like Baylor. Better the wolf with bared fangs than the wolf disguised as a shepherd.
Well, Baylor has come a ways over the years. They used to be a huge offender. Brittany Griner went to Baylor as a semi-out lesbian and survived there. But they have inched their way to a slightly more progressive stance, and they accepted this grant in the face of a lot of criticism from the very right-wing parts of the Baptist church, because knowing that they were going to be expected to promote this more progressive, inclusive attitude. And so we'll see what they do with the money, but I'd like to think something like this would move people to the progressive side more.
I mean, the university is still associated with the Baptist General Convention of Texas, not Southern Baptist, which affirms biblical teachings regarding sexuality, gender, and marriage.
Well, it's all a step along the way.
In politics,
are you still on that, or can I do another church?
Go ahead. Let's go to
St. Petersburg, Florida, where the Allendale United Methodist Church has invoiced the local police department $10,000 for using their parking lot as a staging area for their anti-immigrant raids.
Hooray!
The cops showed up and just decided, well, here's a nice parking lot for us to use, and parked a lot of their cars there. And the church said, forget it.
They're developing apps to alert people when these raids are taking place. I mean, it is so heartbreaking to watch these things because, again, you know, obviously it's not about rounding up criminals or anything. It's just about picking off random, mostly Latinos, you know, off the street. And it's just, it's impossibly scary. It's got to be stopped, but it's going to intensify.
What is Anna Navarro going to do now that Trump has eliminated deportation protections for Nicaraguans? Right. They could come sweep her away. The church announced that they will be giving the money that they expect to receive from the police to lawyers for immigrants. And they are a very welcoming church that sometimes holds services hosted by drag queens.
Okay. In politics, you remember Congress member Sean Patrick Maloney. He lost his seat in 2022 to Mike Lawler, who considers himself a moderate, but is a right-wing nut who voted for that bill. So he's thinking of running against Lawler next year, as are 6 other Democrats. This is a district that Kamala Harris won last year.
Maloney has also said that he's considering running for governor against Kathy Hochul.
Oh, forget that.
I forget the whole thing. And we're very excited.
Why run against Kathy Hochul? I mean, Richie Torres has given up on it.
Because he can't beat Mike Lawler. We're happy that Chris Pappas, out gay man, is running for Senate from New Hampshire. He is a member of Congress, very popular, doing very well. But he now has an official opponent, the legendary Scott Brown, who you may remember as a failed Senate candidate from Massachusetts and New Hampshire.
Well, he was appointed to the Senate seat in Massachusetts once, and then he ran for it, I guess, against Elizabeth Warren, and he lost.
Yep. Well, now he wants to run against Chris Pappas in New Hampshire.
Yeah. Is he gay too?
Scott Brown? Not that we know of.
All right.
Should we do the sports portion of our show?
The Seattle Storm announced that a statue of Sue Bird is going to be unveiled on August 18th. Sue Bird, the legendary Hall of Famer, there with the she's going to be the first player in the WNBA history to have a statue dedicated to her by her team.
A 21-year career. Wife of Megan Rapinoe, soccer star, holds a gazillion records in the WNBA. 4, I think, Olympic gold medals.
5.
Thank you. Will be helping choose the next Olympic team. She is so legendary, it's unbelievable. And so they're going to have this great all-day festival unveiling the statue on August 18th in Seattle.
Well, she was inducted into the Basketball Hall of Fame, and she was recently named the first managing director of the USA women's national team.
Now, also slipping under the radar in the last week or two as we covered the Trump stuff, I don't know if you're all aware of Paige Beckers, who is one of the really huge new stars there on the left in the WNBA out of UConn. And in the NCAA finals earlier this year, Paige and her teammate there, Ozzie Fudd, were big stars in the final game. Well, guess what? They are girlfriends.
Hooray!
Ozzie announced this by holding up her phone, on the back of which it says Paige Becker's girlfriend.
These two first met as high schoolers at the USA basketball camp.
Well, they are both fantastic players. That game was amazing. They were not the top-ranked team, but they took the championship, and they're both huge stars and now out as girlfriends. And finally, in lesbian sports couples news, Olympic gold-winning gymnast Jade Carey, sort of on the left there, quietly announced that she and Amy Sinicola are girlfriends. They have been hugely celebrated by their teammates on the gymnastics team, and they came out about it in May. Slipped under our radar, but there they are.
This
Congratulations,
announcement
Paul.
started a frenzy in the gymnastic community. People are so happy. And we're trying to do things that will make you happy.
Yes, exactly. And lesbian team sports girlfriends is definitely a happy place.
Can I do a little history lesson?
Sure.
There's a new book out.
We don't have all the time in the world left, so just
There's a new book on Charles Sumner, Senator Charles Sumner of Massachusetts, Civil War era and pre, by Zakir Tamiz, and it deals with the great abolitionist gayness. Now, Sumner was the guy, when he spoke out on the Senate floor against slavery in 1856, a representative from South Carolina came in and almost caned him to death on the floor of the Senate, because you weren't supposed to speak out against slavery like that amidst all these slave owners. So, he was a great hero. He's the force behind the Emancipation Proclamation. But the book quotes a friend as saying, he would at once desert the most blooming beauty to talk to the plainest of men. He once suffered a breakdown when his best male friend married, and it suggests that if he could not love men as individuals, he would love and serve them in the aggregate. So he was a great, great American hero. More needs to be made about him. Quite a story. When Lincoln died, he came to the house, the hotel, or wherever he was holding his hand when Lincoln died. They were very close. And Lincoln was gay too.
Exactly. All right. Movies to come, I hope. And thank you to Ohio Governor DeWine, who vetoed some anti-LGBTQ bills in the latest session. There was a ban on pride flags on state property. He vetoed that. And defunding of homeless shelters for trans youth. He vetoed that. Removal of sexual orientation, gender identity library books. He vetoed that. The legislature can override these vetoes, but the lesson here was that there was fervent lobbying by the citizens of Ohio against these heinous bills, and succeeded in convincing DeWine, who is no liberal, that they were bad bills and that he should veto them.
Horrifying story out of the Bronx, where, there's now an investigation into the death of an 18-year-old woman who died in her cell right after getting arrested. She gets into the cell. She's apparently a lesbian, and had broken up with her girlfriend and all this kind of stuff. But there's a lot of details missing. She hanged herself within 2 minutes of getting locked up.
Well, that's the story.
Oh, okay.
One wonders.
Her name was Sania Cheatham. 18
right,
years old.
So we have about 10 minutes left. Let's get to the people we've lost.
Yes. Well, let's talk about the matriarch of Los Angeles's Black LGBTQ community, Jewel Thais Williams, 86 years old.
She was famous for many things, but first of all, because she founded a disco in 1973 called Jewel's Catch One Disco in LA, which became a magnet for celebrities, for the community, for everybody. It was huge.
Madonna, Sharon Stone, Whitney Houston, they all went there.
They made a documentary about it called Jewel's Catch One.
She was also a tireless advocate for community health and healing. She co-founded the Minority AIDS Project there, and other health groups for people with HIV. They named a street after her. She's survived by her wife and partner of more than 40 years, Rue, R-U-E. And together they founded Rue's House, an organization that provided shelter to women and children living with HIV and AIDS. We're going to link to a 1995 interview with the two of them on In the Life. And as you said, she's the subject of a documentary.
Legendary. And also kind of legendary in the theater, Richard Greenberg, who died at 67, quite young, who was perhaps best known for his wonderful play, loved it, Take Me Out, about.
That's the original production there that made Dennis O'Hare there on the left a star and Daniel Sunyata. It's a baseball play. It was it really made a star out of Dennis O'Hare. I discovered him when when I saw it 3 Days of Rain, not with Julia Roberts, but back over in London, and it was kind of a revelation. He wrote like about 30 plays. I mean, and we saw many of them. He was produced on Broadway and off Broadway, often, as we said, only 67 years old.
And Take Me Out was about a gay baseball player and in the locker room with a team, and a lot of nudity in that play that became quite, sensational.
I thought gratuitous, the shower scenes, but I think they wanted to emphasize the tension of being naked with a gay man in the locker room.
Yes.
And it was about a baseball player who was like a Derek Jeter type, a top star. All right.
Whatever. Okay. And
then,
Mark Brown.
Yeah, go ahead.
Died at 90 in San Francisco. He was another legendary character. He was involved in organizing the first gay games. He was a co-founder, and he organized gay softball leagues that became just these amazing magnets for gay men socializing in healthy outdoor sports, having a great time. He was also a writer for the Bay Area Reporter. He was an Army paratrooper and a dance instructor at the Arthur Murray Studios and a shoe salesman. He wrote a book called Gay Games 1, The True Story, The Forgotten Man. He ran operations for Tom Waddell at that first Gay Games.
Ann Northrup was also a pioneer in the gay games movement, and she's still here.
I was on the board of Gay Games 4 here in New York, which was an amazing experience, which I am very privileged to have been able to do. But really inventing the gay games in San Francisco, quite stunning.
Okay. International news?
Yes.
All right. Let's put this picture up. You read about the Israeli bombing of Iran during their assault on Iran, but they bombed this prison, and one of the units housed apparently 100 trans inmates who are now missing and presumed dead. Now, this prison was an awful place, and it was because they locked up political prisoners and things like that. And this is in a country where technically being trans isn't illegal, but there are no real protections from discrimination. But what an awful scene.
Yeah. A much better scene was the Pride Parade in Budapest last week, which we told you about. Well, the numbers keep escalating as they look at it more closely. They're now saying there were 200,000 people at least, including 70 members of the European Parliament who had been threatened by the Hungarian Minister of Justice not to show up at this, but did anyway.
Well, everybody was threatened with arrest because it's now in the Constitution that you're not allowed to do this. But Hungary's largest independent news outlet called the Pride March the funeral procession of the Orban regime.
I love that.
Now, this is important. This was the largest demonstration against the government since the fall of communism. And, now the opposition leader who is leading in the polls for next year's election, he's 15 points up. He said, I'm not going to get into the trap about commenting about this, other than to say that Orban is now the king of pride in Europe.
Well, the next election is April next year, so it's a little ways away, but people are really ready to get rid of him, and he is quaking in his boots by everything we hear.
At the United Nations, the UN Council voted to keep researching anti-LGBTQ abuses despite the United States' U-turn on this. We're off it. But the Human Rights Council, which we don't participate in anymore in the United States because we're not for human rights, they voted 29 in favor, 15 against.
That's to renew the next 3-year term of the independent expert on protection against violence and discrimination based on sexual orientation and gender identity. Qatar, our great friend, voted no.
Oh, well. In Germany, the new German chancellor, Friedrich Merz, he's getting some backlash because he says no pride flags in the Bundestag. Just, we're not a circus tent where any flag can be hoisted. It's kind of nasty. So so members of the Green Party dressed up as a rainbow flag. There they are in the Bundestag.
They wanted to celebrate Christopher Street Day, which in Germany, for some reason, is celebrated on July 26th. And he said no, and they said, the hell with you.
We should say that Merz says it's okay to fly the banner on the International Day Against Homophobia on May 17th.
Oh, bully for him. I really used to rag Gilbert Baker about the rainbow flag as a symbol because I thought the colors clashed, but it has become such a convenient, overt symbol that is so recognizable. It's amazing.
It was once a symbol used by God to tell people that he wasn't going to bring any more floods, although that seems to have gone by the wayside.
And Jesse Jackson. In the Vatican, you may remember the previous Pope said, well, it's okay to bless same-sex couples and other non-traditional couples. Just don't let them get married in the church. Yeah. So we didn't know what the new Pope was going to do, but the Vatican has announced that they are keeping that policy.
Okay. The royal family of Great Britain tweeted on behalf of Pride. They put up something on X. So they had, in front of Buckingham Palace, they had that fancy band playing Pink Pony Club by Chapel Roan. And there was...
Well, that's what we heard is the background of the Dyke March last week with everyone romping in the Washington Square Park fountain, too.
There was predictable outrage on the right. In AIDS news?
Yeah.
Well, RFK Jr. is making measles deadly again. I hope you've read the stories. It's absolutely out of control. There were 86 cases in 2000. There were already 1,274 recorded cases in 2025, 155 hospitalizations and 3 deaths, all due to lack of vaccination.
Yeah, and is USAID coming back or not? We'll keep an eye on that. Rumors are flying.
Really?
Right, yes, entertainment news. There's a new podcast called This News is So Gay. It's a reporters roundtable hosted by a guy named Ken Schneck in Ohio. Maybe they'll put us out of business.
But we long for the release.
Exactly. That's why.
Tell me about Lesbian Library Day.
Well, I was just shocked when someone sent me this. The New York Public Library is running something called Lesbian Library Day, a sober sapphic social soiree on July 12th, this Saturday, from 1 to 5 p.m. at the library that is across the street from the main public library at 42nd Street.
No, it's the branch library. It's on 5th Avenue and 40th Street.
Right. Is it the Stavros Niarchos library or something? So
yes, you got it exactly right.
People 18 and over all are welcome. It's on the 7th floor of the library. They're going to have a scavenger hunt. They're going to have giveaways. They're going to have readings, and they're going to divide it into 2 spaces. Those who want quiet reading areas will have their area. And those who want social area can do that, and we're done. Bye.